So welcome to the show, Zen Honeycutt.
Thank you so much, Robin. Great to be here with you and all of your viewers. Thanks.
Why do you have such an amazing name? Is that just lucky? Like, did you make that up and change it later?
I have awesome parents. My parents named my brother Tao, T-A-O, my sister Chi, C-H-I, and myself Zen. So we're Tao, Zen, and Chi. My parents were married in the 60s.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's so hippie and cool.
Yes, but they swear they weren't hippies, but So, but yeah, that's my real name, and Honeycutt is my married name.
Wow. So then you just married someone with a cool name to put with your equally cool first name. Well, because I was like, there's no way that's her name. It's too cool.
It is my real name.
So I love your work on getting people organized about 5G. We probably better start at the beginning, though. I think a lot of people are really confused about 5G, and they've probably heard some folks who've had exposure to the message of the telecom industry saying, hey, 5G is no big deal. These are shortwave frequencies. You know, it's actually better for you than probably 3G and 4G. But we're all hearing about it. It's getting rolled out. It's getting rolled out very quickly. What's really going on here, and why are you so concerned for the sake of your family and your community and all of us really with the rollout of 5G?
Yeah, I'm very concerned, and I'm so glad that you're addressing this. At Moms Across America, our mission is to educate and empower mothers and others with actions and solutions to create healthy communities. And to be honest, I didn't want to believe that 5G or EMFs could impact our health in any way. I love my laptop. I'm on my laptop all the time. I'm on my cell phone. You know, my kids are. I didn't want to believe that this would be harmful, could be harmful at all. But I started to hear more and more and more from our supporters and from people that were being impacted, and started to dive into it several months ago. And I was shocked to learn that there are thousands of studies showing that this type of radio frequency radiation is harmful. And they go back as far as 1906 with Marconi on an island tested radio frequency radiation on bees. And, you know, I don't remember the exact time frame, but within a very short period of time, they were all either dead or had disappeared. And so they've known for a long time that this type of radiation can impact not only bees, but birds and frogs and human beings. And, you know, one of the quick stats is that within 1,500 feet of a cell tower, there's a 300% increase of cancer rates, and especially children, and especially leukemia. And this type of information, surprise, surprise, just like pesticides, right, and GMOs, has been squashed and hidden from the majority of the public for decades now. And so I'm very concerned that the rollout of 5G is going to pretty much immediately begin to impact people. And that's what we're hearing. We're getting phone calls almost every day, every week, from multiple people, emails saying that they just put a pole up outside of my home and my kids are now having nosebleeds. They're having behavioral issues. I have constant headaches. What do we do? And it's urgent. So I'm very glad you're addressing this, because we need to get in front of that. We need to do something before these facilities are being put up.
So right about the time that I heard your podcast episode on this subject of, you know, how to organize locally, I was in process of, with my colleague, Ryan Sternagel, whose son was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when he was a year old, a neuroblastoma. We were starting to work on what we're going to do here locally. And so right about the time I reached out to you to be on our show, I learned that 10 towers had just been installed. So this is literally like 2.5 weeks ago. 10 towers installed about a half a mile away on this golf clubhouse. So I live up above a golf course. And so I've been kind of going into hyperdrive to learn more, figure out how we can stop it. And so I'm taking a bunch of actions that while I'm going to stand up to Park City, might as well help a whole bunch of other people stand up to it. But my biological dentist, her 2 adult sons who are science and business majors at Brigham Young University, they have this little EMF testing business. And so since I moved to this house, I hadn't tested my house. So I had them come up and I paid them to look throughout my house. And, you know, I don't have the Wi-Fi turned on most of the time. I have talked my neighbor. This is something to add to if you aren't already if this isn't in your plans that you're teaching people about, this is something that I've done. I had already talked to all my neighbors. And the way I started is, hey, are you worried about the 5G thing? Because, there's so many effects on children. All three of my neighbors that are near me have small children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to them in that vein, instead of like, hey, I'm going to try to control what kind of wireless you sign up for.
Yeah.
I went more like, are you concerned about this? Because, like there's so many documented health effects for kids, like cancer risk, like their ability to pay attention, like attention deficit disorders, which all four of my children had. They're all adults now, but all four of them had it. And I think, pretty late to the party to figure out it might have something to do with vaccines. It might have something to do with the 5G. I had a very hard time talking my kids into turning it off at night.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had it to do over again, I've said this on my podcast before, if I had it to do over again when my kids were small, I would just do it then, because trying to do it when they're teenagers is like impossible. Like, you give me your cell phone at 9 p.m. and I give it back to you at whatever time, for a variety of reasons, but their EMF exposure is one of those. I only heard that idea and thought about it when it was way too late. And I think two of them were even grown and gone from home. But anyway, so these EMF guys came and they tested my whole house then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good. Like, it was really good. And, I already had the filters plugged in from my old house where I had been tested. Guess what? My bed was super crazy high in EMF from wiring in the walls. And so now, and the reason I reached out to them wasn't just, I had just heard your podcast and whatever. My partner was experiencing rashes, inability to sleep through the night, tinnitus,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll think of it, but the fourth one, and I had just run across some kind of content. This is why all the content you guys listen to, including plugging into Zen's content, it's like you'll pick up something that's like like maybe you listen to a bunch of stuff you already know, and then you get this nugget. He had all four of the symptoms. He has been racing heart.
Yes. Yeah.
And I heard all those four, and I was like, John has all four of those. We get it tested. The only hot spot in our house, and it was very high, is our bed. Wow. And so now we turn off the breaker. So there's no electricity in our bedroom and bathroom all night. So talk a little bit about, like, your family and how you've been tested and like what you learned, and have you seen any changes from what you've done in your home and kids' behavior?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As soon as we began to learn about this, we had a funder that donated this Safe and Sound Pro 2 meter, which is apparently the best because it shows not just what's like the average, it shows peaks. So you can see the highest levels and then the low and then the average. And we, measured around our house. We were freaked out when my son's cell phone was on playing a video. It was 2.5 million. It maxed out the microwatts, right? It maxed it out. Under 10 is supposed to be safe. Over 100 is considered harmful and dangerous.
Are you talking about playing a video game on his phone?
Yes, watching a video like on YouTube on his phone emits 2.5 million microwatts of this.
Does he have a game system? How old is he?
They also, yes, I have 17, 15, and 11-year-olds. So we immediately, and the gaming system, the gaming console was very high. I think it was like 354,000 or something. Walking around the house on average, it was, 15 or 20 or 28 or something, not super high, but over that threshold of 10 that you want to have it under 10. And so we got hardwired. My husband went out and bought Ethernet cable cords and adapters, cost maybe $40. And he ran these Ethernet cords through the garage to their gaming console, drilled a hole in the floor, put it up to our office. So now our laptop, I'm communicating with you right now on a hardwired, laptop. My cell phone, when I use it, it's hardwired. I turn it off or I put it on airplane mode otherwise. And so that these are some things that you can do right now that cost less than $40. Now, if you want to pay thousands for somebody to put the wires through your walls and make it look pretty, you can do that. But I didn't want to wait for that and can't really afford that right now. So we just buy the cables and we put them along the edge of the walls and, up the stairs and make sure nobody's going to trip over them. And that's that, you get hardwired. And I've noticed right away, I started going to sleep between 10 and 11, sometimes a little bit after 11, and waking up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning with no alarm clock, sleeping straight through having so much better sleep, so much more energy, and really just enjoying not having that radiation. I used to have the chest compressions like before bed almost every night, and I don't have that anymore.
Wow.
So it's real, that I think that really makes a big difference. And I'm hoping to also see improvements in memory, and focus, the more that I put those away, and, don't use laptops and cell phones unless we're plugged in. And so my husband's also done that with the game room, the boys' gaming room. And we just tell them, if you're going to watch videos on your phone, you got to plug in, you got to be down there. And so the phone does not go up into their bedroom. They don't walk around the house with it all the time. I mean, they have it, but they have to turn it on airplane mode. So it's super important, especially when I saw the fertility stats. So the men that have a cell phone and put it in their pocket, but they turn it off first, or they don't carry their cell phone in their pocket, they on average have like a 12% sperm decline, or
motility.
Only 12% is bad, or not not functioning properly. But for men that do keep a cell phone on in their pocket, it's like 47% of their sperm is not working properly. And it used to be 1 out of 10 men in sperm banks had viable sperm. Now it's 1 out of 100. This is a really serious issue. So for people with boys, that want to have grandchildren someday, really important to get them to turn their phone off or hardwire, and be very serious, especially about watching videos on their phones. That's when it's the most, the highest levels. So there's definite improvements, and getting Rick Holder's book, EMF, was very useful for my husband to wrap his head around the topic and to, get into action. Really helpful.
Yeah. When I tested my last house before I moved up here to Park City, I made a sort of an EMF video masterclass with Dr. Libby Darnell. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's in Chicago, and she flew in, and for the sake of this course, which is really nice for me personally, she went around with her very sophisticated, meters that most of us wouldn't invest in, but it's kind of like what she does. Since she got really sick, she's a chiropractor in Chicago area, and she was so sick from running a biomeridian machine all day. But she didn't know that. She didn't know that was why, but she was doing it like 12 hours a day sometimes. And she went out, somebody told her, it was in the middle of like a Chicago winter, they're like, go out and lay on the ground. She went out and lay on the ground. It was the first time she felt good for months. And she had told her husband, like, I think the next thing that's going to happen is I actually lose my mind. Like, that's what it feels like I'm on the edge of. So she figured out it was EMF. She fixed it. So now she's super passionate about it. So she flies in, she measures my whole entire house, and Wi-Fi was bad. If the Wi-Fi was on, that's when I got really serious about it. And I grounded my computer, learned about that, because I don't understand things.
And to add in, you can turn your Wi-Fi off after you get hardwired. And that's what we've done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, here in Park City, I have to turn it on every once in a while because I literally can't get a signal, even though I have boosters. So you can see back there, I have a booster. Mm-hmm. I have one in the basement, because otherwise we literally can't get signal with or without Wi-Fi on. And we tested this, and when we get close to it, the EMF was high, but like right here, sitting here, it's not a problem. Okay. But I just wanted to mention, because you're talking about boys and gaming, because gaming is just such an issue on so many different levels, right? Mm-hmm. But when my son was the age of your oldest son, my youngest son was the age of your oldest, 17, and Dr. Libby flew out and tested my whole house. The highest thing in the house was his gaming system plugged in, not even on. It pegged out her meter. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I know that it was high, and then we hardwired it, and it went down to more acceptable levels.
Yeah.
But yeah, because these consoles are a lot like, some people's phones and stuff too. They're always sending out like Bluetooth headsets. You put those little things you put in your ear. They're always, even if you're not using them, they're always sending out signals, searching, looking for something.
I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to get John to stop putting the thing in his ear, because his tinnitus might not just be about sleeping in the bed with the high EMF that we now don't have. He's the one who said it. He's like, I wonder if it's because I'm always listening to the whatever on the Bluetooth. Yeah,
that's like putting a microwave in your ear, and there's no skull there to prevent the damage going in through your eardrum and your brain. Not a good idea. Yeah, Bluetooth are one of the worst things that you can do. So, and the other thing is people having their cell phone by their bed, even if it's off and plugged in, the dirty electricity from it being plugged in and charging at night by your head will also impact you. So it's much better to not have a cell phone in your room at all. You know, don't plug it in by your bed. I know it's very difficult to do that. One thing that I have done is, if I use it a little bit, because I now have the Ethernet cord in there, is I just turn it off completely and I unplug it, and I don't charge it at night before, you know, while it's by me. And I also have, I'm just going to grab this. I have this silver blanket that gets rid of the Ethernet. So I actually drape this over the power cord that's by my bed that plugs, you know, that I plug stuff into, so that it prevents the, you know, the radiation from coming up near my head and all that.
Okay.
So there's lots of things.
Tell me a little more about that. Tell me what it's called. And
well, my husband got it on less EMF, and it's a silver. It has silver in it. It's a blanket. I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't even think that there's a.
You put it on your lap.
You can put it. Yeah, you can drape it over yourself. I mean, you could. Yeah, I mean, you could do it on it. It's quite big too, so you can use that for all kinds of things.
And so that's for if, like, I'm sitting here exposed to all this, but it's also if you are sitting working on your laptop and you put it on your lap. Is that?
Yeah, well, I don't need to do that now because we're hardwired. I never use my laptop anymore without it just being hardwired. So we're not getting that. I don't have the Wi-Fi coming back and forth to my laptop. And by the way, hardwiring is faster, safer, it's more reliable, it's more secure. You don't have any lag. You have no problems with it. So I would just suggest you get the cord. But I use that because there's electricity that comes out of your power cable cord, right? That's with the stuff that you're plugged into. And because I do have my laptop plugged in and my cell phone plugged into this power cord, the dirty electricity can also affect people. So I just cover it up with that silver blanket, and I'm guessing it reduces. I should probably measure it. That's probably what I'll do. I'll measure it and, be able to have that reading to show that it's reducing the amount that we're being exposed to. So there's a lot that you can do. And so I would just have people search for shielded Ethernet cords and adapters and get those and plug those in, and then turn off your Wi-Fi. Now, turning off your Wi-Fi can be a little tricky because your internet provider doesn't want you to do that. So if you call them and ask them how to turn it off, sometimes they're a little complicated about it. My husband's a tech guy. He handled that. I'll have to get the details from him on exactly how he did that. But there is a place on your router where you can turn it down from 5 gigahertz down to 2.5. So at least do that. And then at least turn it off at night. And then if you can't figure out how to get them or to help you, or for you to turn it off completely after you get hardwired, then for some people, what they suggest is just to buy a new router, because your internet provider doesn't want you to turn it off. You know how when you search for Wi-Fi to connect with, you see all kinds of different people's addresses? Yeah, so they don't want yours to go away. They want it to show up because I don't know if they're sharing it with people or what, but they want to be able to have it so that you have Wi-Fi on. And it's a way for them to download information. I mean, Alexa wouldn't work without it, right? Our smart TVs don't work without it as well. All of this whole smart grid that they're planning won't work without Wi-Fi. And so that's what they want you to keep that on. And I want to distinguish for your viewers the difference between the 5G T-Mobile that is being advertised and being, they're saying that this is so great, and the 5G smart grids that we're talking about. I hate using that word smart, so I usually just say 5G grids. There's a very big difference. The 5G from T-Mobile is simply an upgrade of 4G, and it does include 2G and 3G, by the way. So all the studies that are on 2G and 3G apply to 4G and 5G, because you need to use all of those in order for the 5G millimeter waves to work. But for right now, we're really talking about an upgraded 4G with this T-Mobile 5G, where they say it's everywhere. And that's not really the one we're talking about, because those cell towers can be 5 miles away and it can still say 5G on your phone. What we're really talking about is the 5G smart grids that uses a 5G millimeter wave, which has to sort of ride on, it needs to be accompanied with the 4G. And those facilities need to be about 500 feet apart, and they can put them like 12 feet outside of your house. And that is extremely concerning, because that close proximity and the difference of the 5G millimeter waves, which are different from 4G and can be more harmful, will be harmful to your families. I mean, there's no other way to say that. It will be harmful, and it will be constant, and you won't be able to turn it off, and you will start seeing and feeling effects. Could be within hours, could be within days, might be weeks. There's a man in New York City that lived on a high-rise apartment or an upper level apartment. And this is according to lawyer Andrew Campanelli. And he was right across from a small cell facility put on a lamppost or a telephone pole or something. And within 2 weeks, that ear facing the facility where he slept in that room, that ear went deaf within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about it. I started talking 13 years ago to my audience, in the first year that I was on the internet, because I'm kind of a grandma of internet bloggers, because that was a long time ago, about smart meters, if they're positioned wrong, yes, so that they triangulate in your bedroom. There were people who, I remember one notably, their retina ruptured. And it turns out that their bedroom was just like the wrong place for 3 different smart meters to all the waves came together right here. But so that's interesting. And I'm really glad you mentioned, I want to go back to it because I'm not sure people understand exactly what just happened there in this conversation. Mm-hmm. I have had so many people say, oh, we already have it. It shows on my phone. And I believe what Zen is saying, she can clarify for me, is that on your phone, when you look at what your options are for Wi-Fi, here in Park City, when I moved here 20 months ago, it said one of my choices was 5G. And so people see that and they thought, they think, the 5G network is here. And I think what you're saying is, no, there could be like a tower a mile away, because we have a tower that's probably like 2 miles from here. Mm-hmm. And it's been there for the whole time that I've lived here. But you're saying that's marketing, right?
Yes, exactly. That's a marketing tactic. Yes.
That's not what we're talking about, where you could have, as I have to sit here and work 10 hours a day, 12 feet from here, you could have one of these receivers. Now, are they going to install it 12 feet from here?
They could.
If I and my neighbors don't sign up for it, do you think they'll install it?
If it's on city property, yes. Or if your homeowners association agrees to it, yes. And then their plan is to then later get you to sign up for it, right? So if you organized ahead of time saying that you don't want it, it's less likely that they'll put it in, but they have that ability to put it in as long as they get a master license from the city, which is what they're trying to get, so that they don't have to apply for each, every single facility. But yes, the plan is to have a grid, meaning every 500 feet. So if there's a city of 100,000 people like mine, they're planning on 3,000 of these facilities. They'll put them either on 30-foot poles, or they'll put them on existing lamp structures or telephone poles. They can put them on church steeples. They can disguise them to look like they're practically not even there on lampposts. And with this dense deployment of these small cell, they call them small cell wireless telecommunication facilities, they will all then be able to talk to each other, and your refrigerator, if you have a smart refrigerator, will be able to notify your phone that you're out of milk because you've taken this milk out, right? And then when you're going past Walmart, they'll be able to say, don't forget to buy milk. And then when you take the milk out of the Walmart case, it'll know that you then purchased milk. So they want all of this communication to be happening so that they can gather your data. So I want to be really clear that this technology is not just for you to be able to download a movie instead of 2 minutes, down to like 8 seconds or something.
This is surveillance.
It's for them to upload your data.
This is surveillance, and I don't want to scare people, but just as an example of why you don't want them to know that, as we head into what the UN is telling us will be famines of biblical proportions, as based on COVID, the whole reaction to COVID-19 worldwide, they were shutting down billions of people and locking them in their houses, and all these supply chains are breaking because many people are now unemployed. We don't want them to know how much food we buy, because we don't want them with the contact tracers rolling out to come to our house and say, you have too much food, give us some of it. Or if there's food rationing, I'm sorry that this is scary, but I just want to point out to people why you need to take action to do as much as you possibly. I don't care if we go to get a burner phone and we no longer, we're not using a smartphone everywhere we go, but this is the kind of thing that they will be capable of doing when they know everything that you buy, as it is. Like they're, I have read that the food manufacturers in these very complex supply chains are uploading this to some of these forces that are involved in taking over the means of production in our economy.
Walmart already has a lot of this technology in the refrigerator systems. They can tell how much is going in and how much is going out. Walgreens, I believe, is going to be signing up for this. So they'll be able to remind you to get your prescription. They'll be able to know when you got your prescription, all of that. So all of this data, I want to point out also, is important to big data. It's important to all major corporations. So this is not just a problem with telecom. This is an issue that's connected to big pharma, to big ag, right? To big oil, to all of these different technology companies, to retailers. Amazon and Google and Facebook, all of these companies are also going to be putting satellites up into our sky. Starlink has already been approved to do this. They'll be putting up, I believe it's about 40,000 satellites. They've already gotten 12,000 approved. So these satellites are then going to beam down to these pizza box shaped like satellites, receivers, and then they will then connect to these smart grids and cities and communicate with cars they want them to be driverless cars, and all of this type of infrastructure that we have going on in our cities. And
do you have a picture of the pizza box looking receivers?
What's that?
Do you have a picture of the pizza box looking receivers?
I don't, but Dr. Trevor Marshall, who's a PhD and we've interviewed before, has the information on that. So I would look at his website. I think it's just Trevor Marshall, MARSHAL.com. He has a lot of data.
Okay, so let's get the information let's get a photo and we'll put in the show notes of what the actual receiver looks like. So you can just look around as you're going for a walk out in your neighborhood, and that'll be one way.
That'll be coming soon. They've gotten approval for those, so that'll be coming soon. And of
we'll
course,
look up
no
a link
status.
We'll look up a link for this blanket. She said shielded internet cords and adapters. We'll put that information in the show notes. If you have, Zen, the information you're talking about that your husband has about how to deal with the Ethernet situation.
Yeah, turning off Wi-Fi. Yes, I'll get that from him.
If you send us that, and we'll just put your name on it, compliments of you. That would be. That would be amazing. Since I moved up here to Park City, I have gone from being, and I'm like a 25-year, 99% plus vegan. Mm-hmm. I have gone from having low iron in my blood my entire life to now having 5 times a normal limit of blood, which when I was interviewing Judy Mikovits, she said one of the effects of 5G is separating hemoglobin in the blood. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's why it's like the one unhealthy thing in my whole labs. I got all my labs done this year, just a couple of months ago. And my functional medicine practitioner and I sat there for 15 minutes trying to brainstorm about what could be causing this. Why have I been low iron my whole life? I've been rejected from giving blood for having low iron many times since college.
And now you have high iron? Is that what you're saying?
Now I have massively high iron, like borderline hemochromatosis high iron. And it turns out that is something that high EMF exposure causes. And so, it makes me that much more motivated. I got to figure this out. So actually tonight I'm going down to the Red Cross because it's finally reopened here in Utah. And hopefully they'll take, last time I did before they shut down, they, refused to take my blood because my blood pressure is like 88/47 or some ridiculous thing. And they're like, no, we're not taking your blood. And I'm like, I just need the blood out of my arm. But will you talk about, my employee Helen a couple of years ago was able to go to North Carolina and get out of the smart meter and have them uninstall the smart meter and give her a regular radio frequency meter that sends a signal once a month or once or twice a month rather than every couple minutes, which is terrible. You don't want to have a smart meter in your house. She was able to go to them and say, here's a letter from my functional medicine doctor saying that this causes me health problems. And they not only came and took it and replaced it with the radio frequency meter, which you don't need to be really worried about, but they didn't charge her for it. Okay. Because most places, and people should know about that. So I'd love for you to talk about what actions you've heard of that people are taking or what you've done, you and your group that you mobilize have done to stand up to this.
Yeah, normally they do charge you, and I did that at my last house. I got rid of the smart meter. They charged me $75 to take it out, and you want to ask for an analog meter, by the way, not a digital. The digital can still, emit harmful radiation, so you want to ask for analog.
Analog's where they come and they look at it.
Yes, they have to come look at it, and so they charge you $10 a month for that too. So it could be considered discriminatory, especially for low-income people with health issue. I completely object to that. If you can get that to happen with your health issues with a letter from your doctor, kudos to you. I've had not heard of that, but that makes a whole lot of sense. I have heard of people, there's a woman named Susie in Huntington Beach who had a 5G, 4/5G. So it's not just 5G, by the way, it's 4/5G, right? Put up, but we just say 5G for brevity. But she had this facility put up outside of her home. And before they put it up, she noticed the markings on the sidewalk and asked them. They told her what they were doing. So she had her house checked by a professional RF, engineer. And the levels were about 1,000 in her house, microwatts. And then they put the pole up, and then the guy came back, measured, and it was 8,500 in her bedroom and 10,000 in her living room. And when she went to sleep at night, her experience was that side of her arm, if it was, bare and out, felt like the skin was burning. So she had to get a screen, an aluminum screen, like you put in your windows, but not plastic, the aluminum, and slept under 3 layers of that for 3 months while she begged her mayor to turn it off. She and her husband took the mayor out for dinner, and like they just, constantly asked them to please turn it off. And they eventually did. But there's still 22 other poles up in Huntington Beach that the last I heard were still on. So it is very complicated to get them to turn it off. But if you have any symptoms, headaches, tinnitus, nosebleeds, brain fog, like all that kind of stuff, it is so important to record that, to write it down. If you can get a lawyer, please try to get a lawyer. There are lawyers that will do this for, reasonable rates, but at least document it, go to your doctor, get a letter, and file that. What it's called is you're filing a request for accommodation. So you want to ask your city for a form for the request for accommodation. And you can do this anytime before the pole has been erected or after, anytime. And you can say, I'm requesting accommodation for electromagnetic sensitivity reactions. And this is covered on I believe it's covered under the American Disability Act, people who have, sensitivities and reactions. And in many cases that can get them to turn the pole off or to not erect it in the first place. So your health issues are important and can prevent the exposure, but you must be vocal. You must write it down. It's very important to also get a doctor to support your endeavor. So you can do it, but sometimes it's not before, damage has been done. That woman also had a neighbor that sat outside under his porch, even closer to the pole than she was, because the pole was across the street from her, 65 feet away. He was right under the pole. And that man had a heart attack within those 2 months and died. And so we don't know that that's related, but he was much closer to that and experienced, that's what happened to him.
I'm going to go to my functional medicine practitioner who has been my hormone doctor for years and years. And I'm going to say, will you write me a letter to say that? And then I'm going to submit it to the city. And then I'm going to let everybody know about it, like what happened. For now, what I've got is I'm setting up for you to be able to, with one click, send an articulate, educated letter that you didn't even write. And it's not the same letter. I got a bunch of them. And tell your city council or county council that you hold them accountable.
Yes.
Like
yep.
But then this is a different thing. Like, get a request for accommodation, and then they have to provide you the testing, or is this?
No. So that you're requesting accommodation, and the city must engage in meaningful discussion with you, meaning they must sit down with you and have a conversation. You're able to present your information to them. You're able to tell them of your hardship. And keep in mind that all, especially if you write things down, becomes legal record, right? It's public legal record. And so if they don't do anything about it, you then have a case to go back and sue if you can take that on, or it could just stop them because may be fearful of the lawsuits. And one thing I want to point out is that there are lawsuits coming. This is going to be happening, and the lawsuits that are going to be coming are going to be much more damaging to cities than the fear of the lawsuits that telecom keeps talking about, that they can sue the city for if they don't approve these applications. And what they're saying is, oh no, you have to follow the law. You can't deny our applications based on health or environmental issues. It's the FCC, guidelines or law that you must allow us. You cannot deny us the ability to come in and do this. Well, the fact is that if they do sue, they can only sue for the permit. They can't sue for damages. They can't sue for lawyers' fees. They can't sue for any kind of monetary thing. So it really is a paper tiger, right? They're acting big and scary, but they really aren't. So you could say, you know what? Fine, go ahead and sue then. It will just be, instead of right here approving this application right now and going against the wishes of our residents, because by the way, there's no residents at any city council meeting that's saying, yeah, we want 5G. We want to be radiated 24 hours a day. No, there's no residents there. It's only the companies, right? The residents that are there are objecting to this. So if your city council goes ahead and approves it against the wishes of the residents, then they're putting themselves in a place for lawsuits, right? But if they deny it and then they have to go to court and a judge actually agrees with the telecom, which I can't see how they would do that considering all the scientific evidence. If the judge agrees with them, then you're at the same place that you were originally, right? With the approval, except that the city has sided with the residents and said, we don't want it. So I think that they're less likely of a chance of being sued if they go ahead and deny it because they actually made an effort, to prevent harm to their residents. Then if it does get approved and put up, and we have a lot of ways to not have that happen on our website, Moms Across America. But if it does get approved and put up, again, you can, like Susie, you can get it turned off. And there is a possibility, depending on the location, of even getting the power turned down. And eventually down the road, we believe there'll be more and more lawsuits suing for the harm from those facilities. So eventually it won't be financially viable for telecom companies to do this. And they'll see that, maybe fiber optics really is the best option because no health risks, no EMF exposure, no fire hazards, no security hacks. It's more secure, no inclement weather problems, knocking over these poles and can start fires. Birds landing on them can start fires. The poles actually expose the plants to high levels of radiation, which cause the plant to weaken and create more terpenes, it's like turpentine, like it's a flammable, makes them more highly flammable. So there's so many things about these facilities that are harmful to our communities that I don't see that they're going to be a long-term solution at all. There's just going to be way too many lawsuits. And I think the company, though, is because they've invested so much money in them, they're pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to get them all in right before these lawsuits happen. So they can at least tell their shareholders, look, we did it. We tried. But in the shareholder meetings, they have right in a clause in there that they can't get insurance for this technology because of the health risks. So they have already taken that step of informing their shareholders that we know that this is dangerous. And we know that there could be lawsuits. It's actually in the wording of the shareholder meetings. We know that there could be lawsuits. So they're trying to cover their, rear ends and say, like, look, we know this could happen, but we're going forward with it anyway.
That's fascinating. And I think that this really points to don't wait until all the infrastructure is in, because now they've invested millions of dollars in your city's infrastructure. And so they've just got more investment to protect. The earlier you get involved, the better. And of course, I'm going to try and keep it out of my little neighborhood here. And you've given me some really good ideas to go to my neighbors. So I'm going to start, even if it's just me and my letter from my functional medicine doctor, I'm going to go to them and say, if you put this on my block, I will sue you. And that's not as good as serving them with a lawsuit. However, we got to remember, and I have a lot of confidence in this, and I'm a big fan of talking to people like one-on-one, like a person, like a community member. You got to remember that the city council, the county council, they live here.
Yes.
They are one of us. They are members of this community. They have 201 health problems in their family. And when you point out to them, if you have a conversation with them on the phone, and our software that we're setting up not only lets you send a really articulate letter to them saying, I oppose this and I hold you accountable for the health problems that will roll out, if you're just going to, without even investigating this, put 5G through and let them set up towers on churches and schools. And there's 11 on the Smith's grocery store where like a mile from my house, there's 11 towers. Now there's 10 towers on the golf course. But having the first conversation you have with them saying, give them benefit of the doubt, like, I bet you aren't aware of this. I bet you aren't aware that there's over 8,000 published studies about the harm to humans and animals and plant life from electromagnetic frequencies, from telecom. Now we're going to 5G. Now we're 100xing it. So like, I wonder, like, can I give you some sources, and we will put some sources down below, but it'll be in the letter that you can click, but we're also going to have it so that you can leave a voice message. Well, we did all the homework.
Yes.
We have the phone number in there, and you can leave a voice message. We got little tips for, here's the bullet points of what you want to leave in that voice message. We have in there that you can, you know, do a 1-minute video, and here's the bullet points we would talk about. Send it to us. We'll put it on social media. We'll send it to your council members. So these are the kinds of things that when you're talking about a local decision, the hopeful thing here to me, and I think there's a lot of hope here, is that when you are talking to local councils like city council, county council, they live in your town. They have to then face the fear that their next door neighbor or 3 people they go to church with are going to be leveling a class action lawsuit at them personally, as well as the city, for their actions.
Yes. And also, they're not going to be happy with them, and they live in their town. It's their business. Most of these city council members and planning commissioners own businesses. They're real estate agents, right? They're involved in their community. The mayors, of course, are very entrenched in the community. So, you know, and my experience was they don't want this either, but they just need support from the community to say that we don't want this either, and we need you to work your tail off to find a way to be able to deny this. And some cities like Los Altos they've denied 13 applications and they have not been sued. So it can be done, but you need to educate them about how they can do it. And on our website, momsacrossamerica.org, if you click on action and stop 5G grids, we have letters from lawyers. We have 10 talking points where you can use. They're 3 minutes each. So you can be prepared with 10 people to go to your city council meeting and use all of these different 10 points that give them the tools to be able to say no. And there's a lot of different steps that, different angles, perspectives where they can say no, you know, based on, you know, for instance, like not proving a gap in coverage. They're not supposed to be able to put these in unless they can prove a gap in coverage. You know, things like, is it the best location? Is it really the least obtrusive, most essential location? Well, most of the times, no, it could go somewhere else. So they can deny and deny, right? Do they have insurance? Why would a city want to install any technology without insurance? Deny, 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 right? There are lots of ways that they can deny this. And eventually, if your city denies long enough, they'll be like, that city's too much of a pain in the butt because it's costing them too much money to attempt to install in your city, and they will go away. But not unless you speak up. And one of the important things that you need to do right away in order to be able to speak up about this is to ask your planning commissioners. This is what I found. It hasn't been the city council, it's been the planning commissioners, for the exact addresses of the current and pending locations of any wireless telecommunication facilities. That will mean small cells, or what they call DOS nodes, which is the antennas. Ask them for the exact addresses, and they have to give them to you. They may require you to fill out a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act, just for the record. So just go ahead and do that. And they have to give you those addresses. Once you have those addresses, those are your targets for that letter that you said that you've printed out. You can also get a letter on 5gcrisis.com. I think we also have one on our website, Moms Across America. And you take that letter and go to those neighbors, knock on the door, let them know about this, have a conversation, or just leave it under their doormat, and let them know there will be a 4/5G small cell facility constantly radiation installed within a few hundred feet of your home. If you want to do something about this, right, contact me, go to the next meeting, find out when the next meeting is. It's most likely going to be remote right now, but go to the next meeting, submit a comment before, I think it's 5 o'clock on that day, to be read at the hearing or the public hearing or the city council meeting, and get involved. Because if we don't speak up, they're going to go in. And I did that. For instance, there was one going up outside of a post office, and I saw a postman, and I just asked him, do you know about this? I gave him a couple letters. The last time I heard, that pole is being moved. The post office does not want it near them. So things like that can delay the process long enough to have them perhaps eventually not install in your town at all. And there's a couple of lawsuits that are happening right now in, I think, Circuit 9 in California and a couple other places that may change the whole game. So the goal is to delay long enough so that when these lawsuits are decided upon, that could change the ruling. Like, for instance, give back local authorities the ability to say no to technology. Right now, they've preempted us, and it's very difficult for local municipalities to say no to this technology. But if we regain that right, then the whole game changes, right? Everything changes. So the goal really is to have your city delay any approval process for any applications for the next 6 months. Really, really important. Within that amount of time, things should change.
So that's your first goal, is to get them to delay.
Yes. Yeah. The first goal is not to have them change you can work on changing the ordinance at the same time, and you can ask for things like a 500-foot setback. But in my experience, the cities that I've seen do that, pretty soon 500 feet becomes 100 feet or becomes 30 feet. It's like you're getting on the football field with them and you're running for 500 feet and they push you back to 100 feet, and then pretty soon you're at 30 feet. You're playing their game with them. I would say don't even play that game, and say, look, just deny, and here's the reasons, and just just don't get on the field with them, right, to play. And I would prefer an ordinance. I would prefer an ordinance that says simply that any future telecommunication utilities go underground. That way you get rid of this entire issue altogether. And fiber optics is available. It is an option. Just keep pushing for safer, faster, more reliable, more secure fiber optics. And it's more expensive for them. But in the long run, I think it's going to actually be less expensive for everybody, because there won't be all these lawsuits happening. You know, that's the goal, is fiber optics underground, and it is available to us. They just don't want to do it. And by the way, you may have a telephone company come around and try to pull out your cables, your copper cables from your homes. If you're a homeowner, they tried to do that and I've had to say no twice to them. Don't let them pull out the cables and the copper in your home. It is still useful. But if they take it away from you, it's not useful, right? Then you're going to be completely dependent on wireless.
Interesting. Okay, so what you're hoping for is an ordinance that forces the city to put all
future
underground
telecommunications underground. Yeah. So and the basis for that is that really the 4G that we have for wireless right now is sufficient. And if people want upgrades to that, they can hardwire, and it's way faster and it's safer. They can just buy that little $40, adapters and cords and hardwire. And then this also gets rid of all of the surveillance, right? The data collection, unless you are basically, signing up for it with hardwiring and allowing them to have access to your information.
Yeah, people aren't realizing that, like, having a smart refrigerator or, like the litter robot I have for my cat, I noticed that it has a wireless component to it that it'll pop up and it'll tell me when I need to change the kitty litter. We don't need any of this. We don't need any of it. It doesn't make our lives better. So our internet goes a little faster. I don't think there's anybody who would listen to what you just explained to us and think, you know what, I really am going to take a 600% higher chance of cancer so I can have my internet be a little faster. Nobody in their right mind is going to, and I want to tell anybody listening to this, very important, and I have a feeling you're going to back me up on this. Do not assume that anybody in your city is doing anything about this. Do not assume there is any activism going on from individuals, because listen, you got Green Smoothie Girl. I've been out there, I've written 16 books. I go and knock down brick walls all day, every day. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm suing the state of Utah right now. I have 2 constitutional law attorneys that are suing the state of Utah for all the businesses they shut down, even though it doesn't even affect my business. My business is in the Ethernet or is in the cloud. Listen, I hadn't done anything about it yet, and I've lived here for 20 months. I've been meaning to, but I didn't really know what to do. I hadn't run into your content yet. So Ryan Sternagel beat me to it. Well, he's motivated. He has a 7-year-old who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when he's 1. And he goes to school right over here near where our tower is. And now we're learning that they put towers on schools. So listen, you got to plug into what Zen is teaching here, because she's just so articulate, and she talks about these scientific concepts that are really simple. And you got to get this stay of execution for 6 to 9 months while they study it. Ask them to wait. Just ask them to wait. Right now, you haven't asked them to solve the whole problem or say yes or no to telecom. Slow it down.
Yes.
And realize that you probably will be the first one to organize for your city. You have opportunity to be a hero to your family, to others, to make a difference. But even more importantly, like, you just got to start. You got to put up a Facebook page. Ryan was really frustrated because he's like, Robin, you run these huge, highly active groups, and it's so effortless. And I was like, or he says, it seems so effortless. And I was like, listen, I know there's only 140 people from our county on this Facebook page. So start a Facebook page and don't
Yes.
expect that a week from now you're going to have all these mobilized people doing stuff. I mean, I think he's probably pretty frustrated because he wrote this big letter to the city council. He has called and spent an hour on the phone with one of them. And that's about as far as he's gotten. And then he's told us about it on the Facebook page. But you got to be the one. You have to be the one who mobilizes. And I'm sure you'll have comments on this. I'm going to give you back the mic here, but you got to be the one. Don't expect that everybody in the county is suddenly going to be on your Facebook page. That this is marketing, right? That marketing doesn't work like that. It's, you chip away at it. It is a long play. Like, this is not going to be, you write a letter to city council and we're done. This is going to be.
No. Yeah. This is months. Yes. And you're exactly right. When I learned about this, it was because one of our funders for Moms Across America has a home in a nearby city. And he said there's going to be a meeting there, and there's actually going to be the first meeting is going to be in a different city nearby. So go to that meeting so you can find out about what's going on before you go to another meeting, right? So it's really good to go to the city council meetings for other cities if this is already being proposed and being discussed in other cities. And once I went to that meeting, I was so disturbed. I called my city and found out that the next week was going to be the first hearing for 2 applications in my city. And I looked around and nobody I knew about it. And I was like, oh man, I run this national nonprofit. All I do is activate. There's like nobody else on this. Really? Can't somebody else handle this? I was like, no, you know what? It's going to be me. But I resisted that first week. I didn't start the Facebook page right away. So at my first meeting, I only had 6 people there besides me, or including me. And so it was not a good showing, but we said the things that were clear enough, and we presented, in a way. I gathered up some information from the other websites, 5G Crisis and EH Trust is a really good one. And we were articulate enough, and we spoke to them with partnership. We really acknowledged them for the work they're doing. And they really got that, this is not what they want. 2 of them actually had worked for telecom companies before, one for Sprint and one for AT&T. So I thought we were screwed, but no, they know exactly what's going on. And so only 6 of us presented. And then after I thought, okay, I got to start a Facebook group. So I started the Stop 5G Mission Viejo group and a Stop 5G Orange County. I'm getting connected with people in my county and all across my state. And we're talking and strategizing now. We have weekly calls. And California Issues Reform is really good about that, and 5G Free California. So connect with your state groups, but know that you need to take action locally, because you need to show up at your city commissioner meetings. You need to show up at your city council meetings if it gets to that. In my area, it goes to the city commissioners first. If they deny it, it will go to the city council. They'll get like a second chance. But if they approve it, it just happens. The city council doesn't even have to know about it or discuss it. These 5G poles will just start going up all over the city.
Yeah, so, what Ryan found is that nobody on the city council had any idea that there was a health impact. That's how this happens.
That's exactly what they are planning on. And they will say that this technology is completely safe according to FCC standards. And that statement is so false, I will describe. It's because, first of all, they're not standards, they're guidelines. And second of all, when those guidelines were made 20 years ago, they didn't include any health impact, any environmental impact. So there's no scientific basis for that statement at all. And
you want to hear something crazy? So I've told you like the long and the short of everything that's happened in terms of citizen advocacy here in Park City, Utah, which is an amazing, tourist town that is now, it's going to be a ghost town now because they shut down our economy. And even as Utah's restarting, and even though we're a Republican state, we're still shut down. But I told you the whole long and short of it, there's not much to it of what we've done so far, which is not a whole lot. But we got a letter, like, no, I didn't, but on our little Facebook page, and this is why these pages are so powerful, even though it all doesn't happen overnight. One of the Park City residents said, hey, I just got this letter from the county. And I think it was an email. I think it might have been an email from the county. I mean, there's only 10,000 people who live in this county. And the email laid out, you're not gonna believe this. It says, we are rolling out 5G. And there is no study ever done that proves that it's safe for your health.
Wow.
The letter says that. It says that. Somebody in the county knows, to tell the residents,
beforehand.
we don't know if this is safe for you.
Yeah, well, that's a legal CYA. That's a cover your ass right there.
Well, I don't even think they covered their ass. They just basically, I mean, kind of, because they're just like, we're not trying to tell you it's safe.
Right.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's also leaving themselves wide open for us to hold them accountable.
Yes, that also could be a cry for help, like, hey guys, you need to speak up about this if you want something to happen, because they feel that legally they can't. That's what we keep hearing from city council members, is our hands are tied because the FCC laws and, all of that will get sued if we say no. So what they need to hear from is 300 people in your city council meetings,
We'll
right?
sue you too if we're hurt by this.
Yes. And that those lawsuits will be much more impactful. I mean, let's take, for instance, the Monsanto lawsuits, where a couple willingly purchased Roundup and used it in their backyard. And both of them got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from a product that they chose to use, right? Mm-hmm. But they sued and won $2 billion. They sued Monsanto and won $2 billion because that product didn't say on it, warning, could cause cancer. Mm-hmm. And Monsanto knew that it could. Mm-hmm. Now, what we're talking about here is our city willingly allowing these being told they're being forced to allow these telecom companies to come in and forcibly expose us to technology which has been proven to be harmful 24 hours a day to children, elderly, pregnant women. There are so many studies to show pregnant women exposed to this can have children that are deformed. It is terrifying. It is completely insane that they are allowing this. And the head of the FCC is a former Verizon CEO or head person. He has gone ahead and said, we don't have time for safety standards. We are going to be leaders in this, because they see it as a power play that they need to have 5G up and running before China. Yep. They're thinking about global power and who's, so they don't care about the health impact to an autoimmune compromised 14-year-old girl that's 12 feet away from one of these poles. They don't care that a family in San Francisco within 3 days had to move out of their $1 million house, right? Because there was a pole right 6 feet away from their kid's bedroom. And within 3 days, they were experiencing health effects. They don't care that Susan in San Francisco has a pole 12 feet outside of her bedroom and now has a fast growing tumor that she just got operated on and is recovering from in her brain. Right? They don't care about these individual people. That's called collateral damage for them. What they're thinking about is world power, world domination, being able to have these satellites that are all connected, and that we do this faster than China.
And just remember, that's not who we're up against. We don't have to go, initiate legal action against these mega billion-dollar companies that Bill Gates is invested in, et cetera. We have to go to people who are unpaid, elected, or appointed civil servants, because the planning commission, nobody pays them. I've been a planning commissioner. City council, they ran for office, but these are not people, with big government paychecks. They're people just like you and me, and they don't want the harm to their family. I guarantee you, this is what I was going to say before, 201, they all have a health issue in their family, that when you point out that endocrine disruption, hormone disorders, cardiac events, stroke, heart attack, all kinds of cancers, especially leukemia, brain cancers also. You say a few things, they all have someone they're related to whose lives are destroyed by one or more of these things. And so, we need to start having the conversations. Set aside an hour in your day, 5 days a week for 2 weeks to take action on this. And guess what? You will be the leader in your community doing this. None of this is super hard. You just have to be like a bulldog. Like, you got to be like Zen. You got to be like me, like you just chip away at it. And a week later, like, this amazing contact comes into your life, and you have this amazing new friend that you wouldn't have known in the community comes together with you. Like, you have 2 former telecom employees that are part of your volunteers. That's exciting and amazing.
Yes. Right? And it takes a few minutes to start a Facebook page. It takes just a minute or two. By the way, if you post on Nextdoor, which I recommend, be very careful about your wording, because my posts have been getting deleted and my account was blocked. If you at all seem soapboxy, then it can come across as something that they can delete. So I would just notify people of the hearing happening. And if you want to know more about this issue, attend this meeting. Or if you want to know more, sign up on my, the Facebook page or whatever. I don't know if that'll work or not, but You want to rally people in your local community because you need those people, and the flyers going to the areas where those polls are going to be put up, those are going to be your strongest allies, because they won't want that poll put up next to their house. And those will be the people that will take action and join your Facebook group and sign your petition and, you know, and all of that. And once you start getting vocal about this, you're simply supporting your city commissioners to say no. You're in partnership with them. So do not see them as the enemy. I love that you mentioned that, you know, they're just like us. They have businesses here too. We are working in partnership with them. And if you want a lawyer, by the way, I think it's very important to get a lawyer in some cases, because the city attorney might be alternately educated, right, by perhaps telecom, and the city attorney may not be working in your favor of the residents. So you may need to get a lawyer. And on our website, momsacrossamerica.org, under actions, we have a page called Lawyer Up. And there are a few lawyers that we recommend there for various topics. But you could, I'm sure there's many other lawyers in addition to what we have there, and feel free to suggest them. But I think it's important in many cases to get a lawyer, and a letter from a lawyer to your city attorney and to your planning commissioners can often seem much more impactful than just, you know, a resident complaining about something. So do consider that's a possibility as well. And there are cities like Sacramento that have fundraised for it. They just do a GoFundMe and they say, listen, we need $5,000 and we need people to chip in 10, 20, $100, and this lawyer is going to fight for us. That's a really important strategy to implement if you start coming up against resistance with your city council. Like if they want to approve, right? Or if it is going up, or they don't listen to you. If you have city council members that aren't listening to you, you may need to do that quickly.
Yeah, and when you start talking about them, you know, their names and the conversations you had with them, they care for all the reasons we've talked about, that they're members of the community too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I would start right out with putting them on the Citizen Action Committee that you start a page for on Facebook, but you know, because you want to talk freely and get everybody educated, and we don't necessarily want to do that in front of them.
Yeah, that's really just for the local residents. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then your outreach goes from there. Don't put your elected officials or even the planning commission, who are appointed by the mayor, by the way, if it's the same everywhere that it is in Utah. Don't put them in your group, because you will not be able to speak freely when you're actually just asking questions and learning. But and I apologize for sending a text. I was telling the window washers and John to keep it down. They're being very loud.
Okay.
But, you know, getting started on these resources, don't be overwhelmed. This is all doable. Regular citizens, many of whom are not community leaders and are not, you know, I mean, like, they're going to listen to you, Zen, and they're going to be like, you're brilliant and you have a lot of experience in this, but you didn't until you did, right?
Yeah, no, I have no former training for doing what I'm doing. I was a fashion designer and a business owner before this. I was not a marketing person. I was I've never been, you know, educated in running a nonprofit, and I did not want to be an activist. Believe me, I thought activists wore too much patchouli and had too much time on their hands. Like, not interested in being an activist, but I am interested in protecting my children, and I'm not interested in moving. I'm not interested in mandates of anything. I'm not interested in toxins and poisons in my food. So, you know, my mission now is to enable community leaders to be global game changers. And that is local actions. Local actions will protect our communities, it'll protect our health, and it'll create a future for our children that we can all be proud of. And I believe that anybody can do this. You don't have to have a background in public speaking or training in leadership or anything like that. You do what works best for you. For some people, that's the letter writing. For some other people, it's the data collecting, right? For other people, it is the public speaking. For other people, it's baking the cookies to bring to the city council members once we can eventually get out and about to them, right? We can all do things that make a difference, and working together, we can all contribute. And I would just ask that when you start working together with other people, to be respectful and to be helpful and compassionate, and know that we are all scared right now. We are all scared. There is some crazy stuff going on, and people are going to be fearful and react in fearful ways. And you know how they say hurt people hurt people?
Yep.
Well, scared people do things that can be scary too. And so we've got to be compassionate about that, and realize that if somebody says, oh, we should do it this way, and another person says we should do it this way, well, maybe you should both do it both ways, right? Rather than fighting with each other about doing it one way. I tend to think that when you shine a light, as being a former artist, when you shine a light, like for instance, on a ball, if I wanted to disappear the shadows around this ball and shine the light and expose everything so that the truth is available to all of us, you need to shine that light from all sides, not just one side, right? So you want to use different angles, different ways and to address this issue, to expose the truth of what's going on, and empower people to take actions, and empower your city council and your city commissioners to say no to this. And you can. I'm so clear that we can keep this out of our cities. And earlier you asked me about, like, where do you see this, maybe a year from now? Well, I see, especially because we're Moms Across America, moms co-ops organizing and connecting locally, and groups in every single city and town across America, groups of moms, because they're the backbones of our society, our birthday parties, our sporting events, our churches, our schools, the homework, the doctor's appointments, right? These moms connecting and coordinating locally so that they know whenever there's the 5G pole that might be erected outside their schools, or vector control spraying might be happening locally, or Roundup being sprayed in their city streets, like all of these local things which impact their health, they will be able to inform the local residents about that and invite them to get involved and to take action. So that's what I want to see. I want to see moms co-ops formed across the country, working with other groups, with 5G groups, health freedom groups, slow food groups, master gardener groups, right? Empowering these local communities to have local food security, to have gardens everywhere growing their own food, to have weighing in and a voice in all the local issues around spraying chemicals and all those different issues that impact in 5G and water pollution, air pollution, all of that. We need to get organized right now locally, especially with all the censorship going on in Facebook. There's a group in UK around 5G. I think it was 60,000 members, gone like that.
Wow.
Do they have emails for each other? Do they have a way to contact each other? If not, we need to get going on that now. All of us need to organize and get connected with our neighbors right now.
Yeah, brilliant ideas, lots of words. There's a lot going on in this conversation. So down below in the show notes, we'll have the links to everything that Zen has said. I do want to give you a little tip. Anyone listening who's thinking about, gosh, I guess I'm gonna have to get involved. Don't put those labels on yourself. I'm not a community organizer. I'm not this. I've never done that. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But I do want to say that if you are organizing it, when I was about 30 years old, there was no neighborhood watch, and like 2 of my neighbors got broken into, even though we were, like not a low crime city. 2 of my neighbors got broken into. I was like, I'm gonna organize neighborhood watch. And I was young, and I was new to doing things like that. And I was I went and got like the neighborhood watch stickers for people's windows, and I was like going to get captains all over the city and do all this thing. And and I was like looking at all the people I knew, and I was like, well, she only has 2 kids in Utah. That's not very many, but she only has 2 kids, and she's a homemaker. I'm going to ask her because she has time. Somebody told me, and it was one of those brilliant things I've ever heard, and I have kept that in my head to this day, 25 years later. All those people let me down. All the people that I looked at and was like, they have time on their hands. Somebody at the city said, no. The reason you're frustrated is that you're going to the people that you think have time. You go to the PTA president with 8 kids, who's also a leader in her church community. You go to the people who look so busy. They are the ones who get it done. Listen, 20% of the people get 80% of the work done. So make sure that you don't rule out the people who are busy. Don't think that way. Yes. It was one of the best tips I had ever heard. So
absolutely. The busiest people are the people that get the most done. And I had a volunteer coordinator tell me, we have found that the person who has the idea is usually the best person to champion it. So usually it's you, but
it's you.
Yes, usually, but you can ask for partnership in getting something done. I highly suggest that you do that as well. Buddy up with somebody. Don't take it on all yourself, but also don't stop yourself from doing something about this because you don't have another partner yet. Get going right now. Just send that email to your city council. Find out what the addresses are for the current and pending locations of wireless telecommunication facilities. Get that flyer, download it, takes a few minutes, and start passing it out to your neighbors. Take action right now, because once these things go up, it is very, very difficult to get them turned off or taken down. Very difficult. And then you're looking at moving. I mean, this is This
The
is,
sooner the better. The sooner
yeah,
the better that you can get on this. And as you can see, my windows are being washed. That's what the whole noise was about.
yeah.
Now there's no hiding what's going on here. But so everyone go to, it's Moms Across America is your podcast. Am I right, Zen?
So my podcast is called Unstoppable with Zen Honeycutt. My website is momsacrossamerica.org, or our website. It's a nonprofit. And my book is Unstoppable with Zen by Zen Honeycutt as well. Unstoppable. It's available on Amazon. It's also available in Japanese as well for the Japanese friends. Yep.
So much. And thank you, Zen. I'll be in touch with you. I got more questions for you one-on-one, just so we make sure we get our show notes right. But you are an absolute goddess. I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today and all the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Robin. It really has been a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. And thank you to all your listeners. Thanks so much.